Hey, what's good, everybody? I'm Steve Discourse.
What up, y'all? It's your girl, Jay Callie.
Back with another episode of What's the Deal? Earlier this week, the Green New Deal tour wrapped up in D.C. It was super cool. I was there.
Yeah, I saw a lot of cool pictures. Are we going to war with Iran? Why am I hearing about this?
We'll see.
Let's talk about it.
We're not going to have any soldiers. Why? Because there's a 32-year low for U.S. birth rates.
Oh, my God. Also, abortions being banned all around the country. What is going on? You already know we got to get into that one.
Mm-hmm. But first, the real juice.
The real
the
tea.
The real information
The real
here.
coffee.
A lot of people have been talking about GOT on my timeline.
Steve.
Everybody got. All week, got. All right, that's not funny. All right. Again.
No.
All right. Anyway, do you want to talk about Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
At
Okay,
all?
y'all. Listen, this isn't news, but it's heavy on my spirit. It's on my spirit to talk to y'all about Game of Thrones because I can't be the only person who was both ecstatic and a little upset about the way that the season is going. If you are a Game of Thrones fan and you want to hear me talk about it for like a few minutes, listen. If you don't want to hear about Game of Thrones, then fast forward the episode, okay? Don't skip it. Just fast forward through this part.
2 minutes and 40 seconds.
2 minutes? That's all you're giving me? All right, that's fine.
I don't know.
Listen.
We don't want them to go too
Y'all,
far
it's
forward in
one
this.
episode left. It's only one episode left in not this season, in the entire series. And I'm not understanding how we're going to tie up all these loose ends. It's craziness. We got Daenerys and Jon. Who's going to sit on the Iron Throne? Who knows? I don't know. It seems like Jon is upset. He's finally realizing that Daenerys is crazy. Everybody knew that Daenerys was crazy. Hold on. Let me give y'all just a real quick. So, Steve Discourse does not watch Game of Thrones. He's just sitting here looking at me with a blank look. I need somebody to, like, give me a little bit of banter. He's just like, who Jon? Who Daenerys? Ooh, what? Yeah. So, basically, like, the whole show is about Daenerys or whoever, people battling to sit on the Iron Throne so they can kind of be like the Almighty. And, I knew that Daenerys was going to lose it. I knew that she was going to burn King's Landing down to the ground. I didn't care about the bells. Let me tell y'all something. I had a rift within myself because when the bells started to toll and I said, Daenerys, I don't know if you heard what Missandei said last week, but she said, burn it down. She didn't say, if the bells ring, don't avenge my life. No! Burn it down. I was so happy when she took off on that dragon and started burning and scorching everything. But then, you know, when they showed all the people, they really focused on the people and they showed them dying and they were innocent and they were children. And I was like, all right, damn, Danny, you've been burning this city down for the past 3 hours. Like, chill. I thought you were just going to prove your point and fly right over to Cersei. Like, why are you just killing everybody and burning down the whole town for hours? I just didn't get it. At first I was happy and I was excited. Then I started to feel real guilty and just feel bad for everybody. And I'm looking at Jon Snow like, this is what happens when you don't walk up into your destiny. You knew that you were supposed to be king and you want to bend the knee, or you don't want to be king. You want to serve your queen. No, now look. Now you sitting here looking stupid, killing your own soldiers, and no, it's too late. Goodness. I don't know what's going to happen.
I don't know if I agree with that. Because I didn't see the episode. I've never watched the show. So.
Thank you for the banter. And okay, this is the last thing because I'm mad about a ton of stuff, but I don't want to take too much time. Cersei better be Cersei. I don't know if I want her to be dead or if I want her to not be dead just because I want her to be murdered. She doesn't deserve to die holding the man she loves. No. Somebody got to look in her eyes and say, this is for all the atrocious stuff that you've done. And then rip the light out of her eyeballs. I don't want her to just, rocks. No, bitch. Rocks? 8 seasons of pure hatred? And she gets taken out by a rock? No. And I need Cersei to be resurrected next week. Somebody resurrect the bitch. There's a petition of like loyal fans who are saying, y'all need to go ahead and do this whole season over because we are not satisfied. And I don't know if I want them to do the whole season over, but they got to do something. They need to add a couple episodes. I don't know what they need to do, but oh Lord. I just know that I need my girl Sansa or my girl Arya to win somehow. I do. Wait, I have big thoughts. Can I get my big thoughts? This was not feminist at all. I feel like all the women who I looked up to in some way lost their power, and I really wasn't messing with. They made Dany crazy, and she's the Mad Queen, and no longer this noble woman who's able to show mercy. And Arya goes all the way to King's Landing to take out Cersei, and all the Hound said was, "If you go up there with me, you die." And she turned around and walked away? That's not Arya. That's not Arya Stark. That doesn't make sense. Cersei, the one lady who has no feelings, goes out weeping, crying? That just doesn't make sense to me. Brienne? In a house coat outside crying over a nigga? It doesn't make sense. These are the strongest women I've ever seen. Broke down in the final season. Somebody gonna have to explain. That's all I'm gonna say. If you want to hear more about what I think about Game of Thrones, you can tap into my. Maybe I'll put it on IG, on my IG stories, because I want to get into these stories this week. I'm going to talk about this feminism stuff, and I'm going to talk about how they need to do some switching and swapping. That's all I got. That's all I got. I had to get it off my chest.
I mean, I'm speechless. You handled it.
I had no choice. All right, okay, let's get into the real news. Thank you for tuning in, and if you fast forward it, okay, all right.
I mean, I think you could carry a Game of Thrones podcast on your own. I mean, you would need a whole team to have some good banter, but that was good. I feel the the energy.
Okay, good.
It was good. Right. So I felt the energy. I felt the burn actually. Not in the Bernie Sanders burn, right? So I was at. I'm so weird. Anyway, yeah. So we talked about the Green New Deal a couple weeks ago on the show, and they've been having this tour. The Sunrise Movement is the kind of political organization that is really championing and pioneering this policy. So they've had a tour around the country, like 8 cities or something like that. So it wrapped up in D.C. on Monday, and I was there, and all the heavy hitters came out. 3 or 4 people I never heard of.
Oh my God, they're the heavy hitters.
Oh yeah, exactly. But they also had Naomi Klein, who is a really amazing journalist. She has a great book called "This Changes Everything," which is about climate change and the debate that shouldn't really be a debate about it. She's an amazing journalist. Like, her books, if she puts her name on it, it's something you gotta read. So she's an amazing researcher. Bernie Sanders was there. It was big. People got really excited, and Senator Ed Markey was there, who I don't really know. I'm not super familiar with, but he's one of the sponsors in the Senate. He sponsored this bill in the Senate, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the boss, is the main sponsor of it in Congress. So she was there as well, and people went crazy. It was a lot of good energy. But it was cool because we don't talk about this a lot, but I feel like we could honestly talk about the Green New Deal every day, every week on this episode, because it's that important, I think. And it was cool. I know it's important, but I was in there, and I'm not normally like a rah-rah cheerleader type, get in with the whole crowd and be, just all excited and pep rally-ish. But it was kind of cool to be there in the energy, and the urgency was there in the room. The speakers were pretty good. They made great points, and they really just did a good job getting energy up and kind of explaining a strategy to get the momentum going even further. Yeah. So this was really big. And again, the Green New Deal, if you don't remember from the last episode or you weren't listening, Green New Deal is an idea of how we can comprehensively tackle climate change with a way that also is going to, it's like, what does everybody say now? Like intersectionality, right? Yeah. That's big. So, okay, we got to tackle climate change, but what else do we have to do? We got all kind of inequalities and disparities in this country, and people who are purposely being blocked out or left out of opportunities and things like that. So when we're fighting climate change, we're going to build in plans to undo these disparities.
I wish I would have went now.
Throughout the way. So it was very cool. I got a shirt.
I'm not seeing it.
I got a shirt.
I don't understand
That's how much I felt it.
Yeah, though, that's a really cool shirt. You should. Why didn't you get me a shirt? No, don't say Where's my shirt?
So yeah, Green New Deal is really great.
Listen, the thing about it is, I wish I would have went, because I don't really see the connection between being green and how it correlates with intersectionality? Because intersectionality usually has a lot to do with like culture and identity. And
It does.
This sounds like it's
well,
about
intersectionality
climate.
is not a thing. It's just an idea of how you have to. So you do something with intersectionality in mind, right? So,
Interesting.
all
I
right.
need to
So
look
let me
this up,
let me so let me
obviously.
flip the script. Like, government exists to just kind of, we have a group of people here, and a government is the idea of we're all going to band together in a coordinated way and kind of just make laws and rules and right govern this thing. So that has nothing to do with being racist and discriminating against certain populations in that group, right? But it's there. So this is the flip side of that. It's like, okay, we're going to address climate change and undo those discriminations and things like that. So if we're going to be creating new industries that are for renewable energy, as we expand those industries, we're going to know that there has been a history of, oppression and discrimination for A or B or C types of people, groups of people, whatever it be, whether it's race or something else, right? And then when we build out this new industry, we're going to make sure we're getting people jobs. We're going to make sure we're giving opportunities where opportunities have historically been withheld, right? So the New Deal originally back in the 30s was this huge sweeping thing to pick up the economy, to get the economy going, to give Americans jobs, it was building infrastructure. It was whole wide sweeping, right?
Yeah, I see
But
it.
you know who's excluded?
Who? Black and
Non-white
brown
people. Yeah. So this is going to be the opposite. It's like, okay, that was a good model of what we need to be doing in society, thinking all together in big ways, but we're not going to be excluding people, right? So we're going to understand who is historically oppressed. And, I think I'm probably by now repeating myself about this, but that's the idea. Any work that has to get done to fight climate change, we're going to make sure that work is done in a way that's also going to be beneficial to everyone in a very purposeful way, not just like sunshine, flowers, and kumbaya. It's going to be nice, but like we're actually going to do it. So if we have a plan that doesn't include an understanding and awareness of these disparities, then it's not the plan that we need to execute.
Okay. I mean, this it's good that you're repeating it. You definitely are kind of saying things that you've already said, but I know if I need to hear it again, someone else needs to hear it again too. So it's no harm, no foul in you kind of saying it more. No one's like, well, hopefully no one's out there like, oh, you said this 6 weeks ago. Like, okay, can we learn? That's how education happens. You teach a lesson more than once. Anyway, thank you for that. I'm going to go and do like a little bit more of my own research, and I'm going to actually take it seriously, because before I researched it only because I wanted to be able to talk about it. But now I think I'm interested and I really want to know. So
yeah, I think it's going to be really good. And I mean, it's been, pioneered. A lot of the organizers are people of color, or women of color as well, specifically. And I'm not super familiar with the movement and the organizers. The Sunrise Movement is the group really responsible for it. And I can't remember the woman's name offhand. I should have had that written down. But she was running that thing. There was a lot of great women speakers and organizers and political consultants and everybody involved in the event. And so, it's I mean, and then we got to do something to fix this climate thing that we're dealing with. It has to happen. So we're going to fix some other things along the way while this happens.
great.
That's the idea.
Sounds good.
So
We really want to move on and talk about all the stuff that's going on with like the abortions in the country and with the birth rate currently in the United States. But there's like a lot of tension going on right now with Iran, and I think I want to get into that first. Like, what's going on with Iran and the United States?
Okay. So yeah, if you've been listening to the news, really this week for the most part, there's been like escalating tensions, and troops have been moved around and things like that. There's been a lot of posturing and shit talking, really, and people are talking about, are we going to get into conflict? Is there going to be war with Iran coming up? And it's really interesting because Trump campaigned on a platform of like, it's not our business. We don't get involved with other people and what they're doing. America first and only, right? He wants to pull troops away. But at the same time, this guy's the biggest trash talker, right? Like, he's going to nuke the shit out of North Korea or whatever he said. That wasn't a direct quote, I think. But like, he's got these big balls, he acts like, but now he's also kind of like, hold on. I don't necessarily know about this. He's kind of, to me, it seems like he's sending mixed signals about what the posture really is. But the other interesting angle of this is the National Security Advisor, John Bolton, is a guy who's made a whole career of just wanting to pick fights. Like, this guy's like,
That's what
whole
it feels like to
MO.
me, yeah.
This guy's whole MO is like, we got to kick their ass. We got to kick their ass, and they're a risk, and they're a risk, and this is risky, and this is, and war, and we need to be bombing some people. And like, he's just, I'm trying to understand who this guy is as a person. Like, what is it like to walk around in his head to be so like hopped up on, is it just paranoia?
Yeah.
Is it just rampant like a xenophobia? Like, he's just so America first that he thinks we just have to be bombing the shit out of the rest of the world. Like, I really don't know. And I mean, this is obviously not very objective and newsworthy, but like, if you look at this guy, like, the look on his face is always so sour and stank.
I need to Google him. Who is it again?
John Bolton.
Okay.
And it's just, he always seems to, I don't know. It's a weird thing. So he is a hawk. Like,
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have Googled it right there. He should not be.
Was that right?
Why does he look? He looks so mad.
He does. Like, but that's his career. Like, his face matches. Like, he just looks like this very, like, bothered, grumpy ass old man.
That's exactly how he looks.
And that's what his career has been this, like, I don't know. And there's also been a lot of like high profile politicians, or maybe not a lot, but some who have come out who say like, this guy, they don't really respect him personally because they think he's just out for self, and he's got this agenda that he views in his own personal mind is the right thing, and that's what he's obsessed with getting across.
Yeah.
So it's weird because Trump has been publicly saying he's actually the one who needs to kind of reel this guy John Bolton in, because we'd be in a war with Iran if it was just up to Bolton. So it's weird because the tension also doesn't seem like it's come out of anywhere. Like, there was not some action that happened and was like, holy crap, why? It's like people talking shit and nobody really wanted to fight, but you got to keep escalating the trash talk or something. And you're like, wait, we're going to go to war, but what happened? Nothing
that's
exactly
literally
happened.
what I'm sitting here thinking. Like, it really feels like this is out of nowhere. It also feels like Iran didn't actually do anything to trigger it in this moment. They're kind of just like bringing up old shit. You know how they be like, bringing up old shit? It feels like they just bringing up old shit and being like, we need to be over there. It's like, why? Our soldiers are already dying on the front lines. Why would you start another war?
Funny you should say that. I think more... did I see a stat earlier? More students have died in shootings than soldiers in combat in the last year. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure that's what I read.
Accurate.
But anyway, so yeah, I don't know. You know, the other thing is we had this nuclear deal worked out where they were going to stop pursuing, nuclear technology, and then Trump pulled us right out of that. Obama worked for several years to get that thing ironed out to where it would work, and then Trump pulled all the way out. And the rest of the world is like, is there any way we can keep this together? Because that was a dumbass move. And so if anything, escalating tension would really seem to be a result of Trump doing stuff like that and putting pressure on them, which we had already previously like ironed out. Yeah. So I don't know. Anyway, don't be too scared about that. Does that sound convincing?
No, I was just saying.
Be very scared.
It's war.
I don't know. Yeah, no,
war is scary, and that's like my thing too. Like, ever since I was a child, when you asked me about my fears, I would be like, war. I don't watch war movies. I don't even watch Forrest Gump. I can't even watch Forrest Gump.
This girl was in Infinity War. I was with her.
I'm sorry. Thanos was in that movie. Don't make me start it up again this week. Like, no, I'm just joking. No, right. That's not a real war. I'm talking about war with like bombs and people lose. Specifically, the thought of people losing limbs is my thing. So like, I just can't think about war. It's so
All right. So we can move on. But that's mostly what I wanted to say. Foreign policy type of stuff is not usually our forte anyway. But it just seemed worth mentioning. So, all right, but what's happening now? Are we not having as much sex or what? Because the babies are just not coming out.
I really hope.
We, like Americans.
Well, yes, of course. I don't think anyone was questioning that, Steve. No one.
Right. Just in case. I don't know. I just didn't want to confuse people, mislead people.
Americans are still having sex. However, Americans are not having babies as much as they were. The birth rate has been dropping rather consistently for the past. It's been dropping consistently for 4 years, but it has been on a gradual decrease for the past 32 years. In the year 2018, at the close of the year, we were at our lowest ever. Since we've been an established nation, birth rate. We are not having kids, and the thing that they're attributing it to is, one, there's a lot less teenage pregnancy. Teens aren't getting pregnant the way they were. Thank God. Thank you, Morgan Freeman, for producing the show 16 and Pregnant. You have single-handedly eradicated teen pregnancy.
That was a Morgan Freeman show?
He was like the executive producer.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm joking. I don't know what caused it, but teenagers just aren't getting pregnant anymore, which
Okay.
is alarming to me because I have not been seeing a lot of teenagers out here waddling around. But also people in their early, mid, and late 20s are not having babies as often as they were. And the reason they're saying that is because coming up out of what they're calling the Great Recession, which was the recession that we went through 2008 and moving forward, people just don't have money. Young people don't have money. Young people aren't getting married. Young people aren't buying homes. Young people aren't starting their careers as early as they once were because they don't have the money to get the degrees on time. And those are typically things that precede child rearing and family starting. So young people aren't having kids. That's what it really boils down to. And then professionals obviously have never had many kids, but professionals are having less kids. Families that
like two household type
like
of
families
earners.
that would have like 4 kids. You're now seeing more families just have 2 before they stop. So yeah, Americans are afraid to have kids, and it's largely due to the fact that Americans are poor.
I mean, that's the conversation I see
Yeah.
all the time, is not about birth rates, but just
Economy.
the idea of, I mean, I was out having a conversation the other day with someone, and it was just the fact of life now for millennials is that you have more than one job. You might be
Yes.
piecing together income from a bunch of different places, or you have a side gig on the side of your main gig. And for a lot of people, some people, that's just extra income that they're willing to work for, to maybe go on a vacation or
Right.
invest or something. But for a lot of people, that's just getting by. And I mean, what are you going to do if you can't? Let's break it down. Childcare costs as much as rent, if not more, for a lot of people. So who's going to take care of your child, right?
Not me. I'm not raising my own kid.
Both of us got to work probably, so we can't do it. We can't afford somebody to pay for it. If we can, we don't even hardly have health insurance. What's up with that, right? So it's just, there's so much stacked against us, and it's not like generations earlier where if you had a job, you were paying your bills. That used to be the
basically,
default.
That's what it was, right?
And today, the way everything is set up, that almost sounds like some kind of science fiction, like alternate reality, right? Like what if everybody with a job just could pay rent?
That's actually insane. Because
Right.
there are several people who just legitimately don't have their own place to live because they can't afford rent. Oh my God, we
Right.
live in D.C.
So all right, check this out. Another thing about the birth rates being a problem is if you think about like generational population, the way they look at these things, like if you put it on a chart,
Yeah.
for a while we had like a pyramid. So when you had the baby boomer generation, you had like a smaller generation at the top and a wider base, which was the baby boomers who were born.
Yeah.
So there's like 1,000 for every 700 or something like that. I don't know what the numbers were, right? But the point is now you have a base. So as those older generations get older and need help, there's a wider base of people getting older to be able to support them.
Yeah.
But as it levels off, we're starting to see a rectangle. Whereas it's equal numbers of young and very old. And so you don't have as much resources from the younger generations now to put forth taking care of the older generation, because that's
Okay.
the rectangle. I forget the technical term of it, but it's like it's a concern of a rectangle shape of generational kind of growth
Balance,
is a concern, because it's going to put a lot of pressure on younger generations to take care of that many elderly people.
They don't let us is the problem. Baby boomers, many baby boomers still have not retired. We're just getting to the point where we're seeing baby boomers like leaving their jobs. So many old people in the workforce, and they're not leaving jobs for the people who have degrees. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, but what I mean is, even if they did, because the number is becoming so close to 1 for 1, there's no extra resources now.
I get what you're saying.
Before, when there was 2-3 times as many young generation as the retiring generation, we can funnel money up and take care of them.
Right.
Now that's getting to a heavy lift, because for every one person coming in, there's like one person retiring, and we don't have the money for ourselves, let alone to siphon and funnel up to retirees.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I mean,
Lord,
it's not looking
the
good.
American economy.
It's not looking. Either this generational thing is going to kill us, or climate change will. So either way, is that too dark?
It's not too dark, because it's the truth, and the people need to know it.
Yeah.
People, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? We're all getting old. Hey, we're all getting old.
I'm also looking at older voters, and I'm just like, you guys chose this. What's wrong with you? Are you going to change?
They're gonna blame it all on us.
I feel like we need to start lecturing them the way that they would lecture us, right? I think we need to sit down and say, you dang seniors, all right?
Elders and
You
leaders
seniors,
of our nation.
you need to start taking responsibility for your actions. You know, you're no good, you're lazy. What are you guys doing? You need to step up.
No, they need to step down. Step back.
All right, fine.
Let me do it. Listen, and it doesn't mean we don't respect you. You laid a lot of foundations. You did a lot of hard work. But some of the work that you laid and that you put forth in order to benefit and improve your own quality of life, it doesn't have the same impact on the next generation. It's not improving our quality of life. It's making it, it's a big struggle for us, and we don't want to bring children into this mess. We want to fix it first. And it seems like every step we take to try to fix some of the mess, there's a block, there's an obstacle, there's opposition. Okay, well, I'm not having kids until I know that we're good. I'm not even good. Can I get good? Listen, y'all, listen. We got to do something. Listen, y'all, like,
change your voting habits. Yeah. Older folks need to start voting like they understand what the current situation of the economy in the world is, and not like how they think it is based on how they grew up, because the times have just changed. Like, the job that you think is sufficient, it was sufficient for them, but it's not for us. It just doesn't do what we need to do. So
it's not. And I also I'm also like not me personally, but this generation, I'm also like tens of thousands of dollars in debt just so I can have this job. I would like to get paid and actually be able to do it, and then I could afford to like buy a house and, and have a wedding, and then I'll have a baby who like doesn't have to eat cat food. No, really.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna eat cat food.
Speaking of having babies,
people just aren't allowed to not. They're trying. Listen, this is my theory, and I know you're gonna combat this theory because I made it up, and it's probably very wrong. That because the birth rate is low, that's why they won't let people have abortions. They're like, what? You're the only pregnant girl for 100 miles. Get yourself in that bed and get on bed rest and have that baby. Like, you're not coming to this abortion clinic. Nobody else is gonna have a baby this year. It's all up to you. They won't let women have abortions. And that's a joke, but it also, in real life, abortion has been banned in several states and also cut back and minimized in several states. And I'm going to get more into the details of that later. But first, I want to know, Steve, is my theory correct?
No, maybe. I mean, no doubt it probably plays into it a little bit. But, like, abortion has been controversial for a long time.
Yeah.
It was controversial before Roe v. Wade, which the Supreme Court said it's legal. It's
right.
And it's been still controversial. It's been a source of debate ongoing. I can't speak for the 80s and 70s and 60s and everything, but in my lifetime, it's always been controversial. So, but if you remember back to the Brett Kavanaugh Supreme Court nomination, this was something that was brought up. It was like, how do you feel about Roe v. Wade? Because people wanted to know if an abortion case is brought up to the Supreme Court, are you going to vote to overturn Roe v. Wade or not? That's basically what people wanted to know. And that's why a lot of people on both sides were so concerned with this, because they viewed it in one very specific way as it being a telltale of what's going to happen. So this is we're there now, right? He got confirmed, and now we're at the point where we're seeing these laws be passed really with the idea of just going to the Supreme Court. Like, a lot of these things aren't necessarily even being passed with the idea of, oh, they're just going to be laws. They're like, no, we know we're going to challenge this all the way up to the Supreme Court, and that's the win that they want. They're not interested in finding a way to have an abortion bill that will stand now as is. So it's a long game.
Okay, well, I'm going to say we can find a happy medium. You know what I'm saying? Somewhere in there. But I want to make sure that I deliver the facts for the people who are listening and who want to know, like, okay, so what is going on with abortion? Why is everybody talking about it? What's the big deal? So basically, like Steve Discourse just said, it's been a long-running conversation. Pro-lifers have been rambling on and on. People have been throwing bloody paint bombs at people outside of Planned Parenthood for decades. But in the past week, Alabama has passed a law banning all abortions, like from the time that you conceive, from the moment that you get pregnant, 0 weeks pregnant, up until full term, you may not have an abortion. There's a lot of stipulations, like it doesn't matter if you were a victim of sexual assault, you cannot have an abortion.
I thought it was 6 weeks.
Okay, so that's what a lot of people are thinking, because there's a few other states like Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, Ohio. They have pushed abortion all the way back to the fetal heartbeat, right? And they're saying once that fetus has a heartbeat, that is considered a human being, a person, and you cannot abort it. That fetus has rights. So the fetal heartbeat starts at 6 weeks pregnant. So in many states, they've banned abortions after 6 weeks, after the heart is beating. So people are like, oh, that's a little absurd. Most women don't even know they're pregnant at 6 weeks pregnant. You don't really have a lot of symptoms. Your period comes every 4 weeks. Once you're 2 weeks late for your period, that's when you're just being like, oh, let me go to the doctor. Oh. You get what I'm saying? Like, one's, as soon as you miss your period, I'm pregnant. So it's like, and some people have irregular periods or whatever. Point is, a lot of women don't even know that they're pregnant at 6 weeks pregnant, right? So to say, post this thing, you can't get an abortion, it's no longer your choice, is really it's really not contradictory, it's really scandalous. So that was already a big deal. But in comes Alabama and says, I don't care about 6 weeks. From the moment that sperm enters that egg, that embryo, that zygote has rights, and you don't have the right to abort it, which is actually insane. That is insane, because who are you to dictate what someone else does or the circumstances of my life? If I'm financially able to support a child, if I'm healthily able-bodied to even carry a pregnancy, some people literally are not capable of carrying a pregnancy. So it's just like, it's so many other factors that go into it more than just, it deserves life. What? First of all, on what basis? On what scientific basis? On what legal basis? This sounds very like an opinion, and it also sounds very religious, right? So it's like, it's just a lot of things that go on within it. So people have questions and people have concerns about that. Also, some other states that recently passed some fetal heartbeat bills just this past week have been Georgia, Kentucky, Missouri, Mississippi, and Ohio. They've been passed that at 6 weeks you cannot have an abortion. Also in Louisiana, Minnesota, New York, and Texas, those same 6 weeks fetal heartbeat terms are still pending. So those states might be added to the list where at 6 weeks you can have the abortion. I'll be really shocked if it's passed in New York, because New York is currently one of those states where you can go get an abortion all the way up to like 26 weeks. It's like one of the places that people go when their time has run up in their state, and they're like, let's go to New York and get an abortion, which, I'm also not a huge fan of, but that would just be shocking if they passed that 6 week fetal heartbeat law.
Yeah, so one thing I've been seeing is there's actually surprisingly a little bit more flexibility on both sides than it would seem, than a lot of the coverage of the debate really seems to show us. And I heard an interesting piece on NPR earlier this week showing that actually, depending on how you phrase the question, you can get plenty of pro-lifers who actually concede, well, okay, in A or B circumstance, yes, I get it, that's okay. And same for pro-choice people. okay, under A or B circumstances, maybe that's not acceptable, and usually that on their side has to do with like how far along, right? Because nobody's saying like, oh man, I'm due tomorrow, but I'm going to drop this thing out of here. I'm going to get an abortion. That was a little crass, excuse me. But, so nobody's really saying like right before the baby is born, it's okay. So there is kind of a little bit more give and take. And so we don't have a chance to have the nuance, I think, in the public sphere. And honestly, I think it has a lot to do with because politicians have careers on the line. And so I think a lot of times they don't have time for nuance. They need to make a stand. Is it yes or no? I'm on the right side of this camp, right? And you're on the wrong side, and they don't benefit. It's hard to campaign and win an election with all these gray area things, right? So a lot of them rely on the is it yes or no, right? You can't vote for a Democrat. They're going to blow the doors wide open. And like Trump said in his, I think it was State of the Union, he painted a picture like babies were being born and the doctor was strangling the baby in the delivery room. Yeah, it was pretty disgusting. We talked about it. You've cast it out of your head, which is good.
Because that's sick. It also doesn't happen.
Well, exactly, but he painted that picture. And so that's what ends up happening. And so it becomes this absolutely not or absolutely yes kind of depiction, even though in reality a lot of people necessarily aren't that extreme, 100% yes, 100% no. And to me, I mean, I think I understand why people are uncomfortable with it, and I understand why they're deeply like connected and really don't feel comfortable with abortions. But at the same time, I mean, you got to have some kind of humanity. I mean, imagine a child is raped and gets pregnant, right? Like you got to be. I don't know. I mean, it seems to me like you got to be real soulless. Okay, you got the statistics,
so
Jay Callie.
Statistics in terms of abortion, and I'll go by, it's lots, racial statistics, age statistics, income statistics. Okay, so when we're talking about age, 60% of abortions are performed on women who are in their 20s. Only 12% of women who go to get abortions are teenagers. And when I say teenagers, that includes 18 and 19. Only 4% of women who go to get abortions are actually minors. So that goes back to when we talk about teenage pregnancy rate. It's dropped tremendously. So, in the past, year, only 4% of minors actually go to receive abortions. Most women are of age, they're of legal age, they got pregnant, they just, things happen. They either are not ready to raise a child because we just talked about how early 20s and we're still poor, or anything could happen. And I think that what we tend to box ourselves into thinking that every woman who's going to get an abortion simply was irresponsible, having unprotected sex and got pregnant and doesn't want to have a baby. When in fact there are so many diverse reasons of why people are unable to have a child, or why people are unable to raise a child. It's just way more than just we had unprotected sex and don't want to have a baby. 75% of people who go to receive abortions are poor or low income. So that automatically kind of gives us an idea of like most people just know that if I bring this baby into this world, they're not going to be happy. They won't have food. They won't have housing stability. They may not have clothes. Like I would rather just struggle by myself than bring a child into the struggle just because everyone deserves life. Like you deserve quality life. You deserve a meaningful life. You don't deserve to have a life of strife and struggle and pain just because someone thought that, right? So, and that's nobody's choice but the mother of what she wants her child to endure. And again, I don't agree with late-term abortion, but if you are at a certain point in your pregnancy and you're like, this is early enough for me to still be like, nah, this baby doesn't actually, it's even hard to say baby, this thing, right? Whatever you want to call it. I'm saying thing because I don't know the right word. Isn't going to have it's not going to be affected by this, right? At a certain point. So, yeah. Racially, though, 39% of abortions are performed on women who are considered non-Hispanic white women, 28% on non-Hispanic black women, 25% on Hispanics, 6% Asians and Pacific Islanders, and 3% people identify racially as other.
So it's pretty balanced.
It's pretty balanced. Yes, it's pretty balanced on who's receiving abortions. You see the biggest imbalance in income. Most people who are getting abortions, regardless of race, regardless of age, are poor. So, I mean, we can get a pretty clear picture.
And that's sad right there, because if you really draw that out and say, okay, what does that mean? I mean, it shows how serious money is in our lives. I mean, there are farmers around the world killing themselves because they financially they can't make it work. And that's for a lot of reasons of why financially the farming industry is messed up. So it sounds like a weird non-related point, but the fact is, like, money absolutely dominates every aspect of our lives. Like, there's no way around it. If you don't have it, like, if you lost all your money right now, what would happen?
I'll move in with my mama.
Right. And your entire life would change, like 100%. And if you were never able to recover that or whatever, it's nuts. There's nothing you can do in this world without money. Nothing, right? You can go to the library, right? I get it. But are you going to have clothes to wear to the library, right? Are you going to be able to have food and eat? Like, it dominates everything. So the fact that we're making these decisions basically a lot of times just based on economics and everything, that's sad right there. So if you don't want these abortions to happen, then there's one piece of evidence of why this is not the solution. We got to find other ways. What's wrong with the economy, right? And people are no doubt already going, oh my God, that's not why abortions happen. So there's other reasons for medical and things like that, right? And you know, I can't speak to those, but if you have, look, I trust the doctor. If a doctor is saying, listen, this is risky, then that's up to you. That's not up to me to tell you guys. I think we
talked about this I don't know, this was quite a few episodes back, and we talked about people who do receive abortions for medical reasons, and a lot of moms were sharing their testimonies of, like, I was definitely going to die, or women saying, I was forced to give birth, and my baby suffered for 48 hours and then died in my arms. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was forced to carry this baby to term knowing that they weren't going to make it. I was forced to watch this baby with this medical condition where all of their bones in their body were broken at birth, or they didn't have their lungs developed and they literally just suffocated as soon as they came out. Like, there's so many reasons why you would rather this person, this baby, this embryo, whatever you want to call it, to be put out of its misery before it even knows or before it even experienced actual, like, life, versus having it be born and go through this traumatic, just birth itself is trauma. It's beautiful, but it could be trauma. So yeah, I mean, it's multifaceted. I think we've done a great job of saying we're not medical professionals or economists, but we know enough that there's many, many reasons, and we're not going to sit here and try to speak on every single one of them because we would be here all day. So you get the point. It's a lot going on, and it's not something that a person can just drop the ball and say, no matter the circumstances, it's a hard line in which we won't be very flexible of what will allow you to do. And I just don't think that that's okay. Yeah,
and I think the main problem with this really comes from the idea from abortion opponents, the main goal, ultimate goal being to overturn Roe v. Wade.
That's
because that's where the problem is. Because if you want to have legislation that limits it, there's reasonable ways, I think, to do that, maybe, you know, and for some people will disagree with that, but I think there's probably some reasonable ways to limit abortions, but they are just really petty with it in a way to, by any means necessary, make these procedures impossible to get. And I think that's just really dishonest, and it's a shitty way to treat other people. It's super judgmental. You don't know their lives. You don't know why they got here. You're either going to draw a blanket belief about one reason why abortions happen, you know, one story of how it happens, and that's dishonest, or you're just totally discounting the fact that these other people with opinions and beliefs aren't as valuable as you because you have this one stance that you happen to have. And it's like, it's just so shitty. You know, it's emotional for you. I get it that you just feel like this is a travesty against, like, humans, right? Full people, I don't know, God's creations, however you want to say it. I get it, but it's just so deeper than that, you know? And this is not the right way. You can have conversations or something, get programs, right? Maybe some people don't feel like they're ready to be parents or something. You can start a nonprofit that gives people parental training and guidance or something. You know, there's ways to plug in maybe to mitigate how often abortions happen if they're happening for just discretionary reasons, right? As not medical. I don't know. You know, it's just shitty. It's just a shitty way to treat people, to be honest with you. And I mean, I've been in a situation where I got a girl pregnant when I was younger, and that was a decision we could have made, right? And neither of us were comfortable with that. So she had the baby. It got adopted right out of the hospital straight away. So we met some families and we said, okay, this is cool. It was a very, like, private one-on-one kind of thing. And this kid's 16 right now.
Yeah.
And he's doing great. And that will be a story why some people would say, see, this is why you can't get abortions, because this kid wouldn't be there. But that's not. That's my story. That's my story, but that has nothing to do with you or your story or her story or his story. Like it's not our business.
Right.
I don't like. I would love it if people weren't in a situation where they're saying, "Nah, this baby we're not prepared for it. We can't support it," or something like that. Again, going back to the discretionary kind of cases, right? I would love it if those situations didn't need to exist and people said, "Oh, okay, I'm pregnant. Well, we're gonna have a kid, and that's great." But it's not my business anyway. Mm-hmm. I don't think so, right? I'm doing a lot of talking. I don't know. Am I talking too much? Jay Kelly,
no, I've talked a lot already. I feel like I've said everything that I need to say. Like not everything. This is an ongoing conversation, but in terms of right now and what I want to report, I've said it all, and I think that I've made my point quite clear. I consider myself pro-life for a very long time, and I didn't really know what it entailed, and I decided I realized that when I was talking about being pro-life, I was talking about myself. I'm pro-life, meaning I personally wouldn't want to have an abortion. But pro-life, I realized meant I don't think anyone ever should. And I was like, well, I don't think that's true. I think that people get to choose to be pro-life for themselves, but you don't get to choose it and mandate it for every woman in the world. Right. So then I realized, what I'm actually saying is that I'm pro-choice, and I've made a choice for myself, but I do not get to choose for you. No one does. No one ever does. And that's my philosophy in just life. No one ever gets to choose anything for you, ever. The only person who ever gets to choose for you is you. And even when you put this abortion law, you actually still don't get to choose for me, because I still have the choice to have an abortion. I don't get to choose a legal abortion anymore, but I still get to choose to have an abortion. You cannot force me to do anything. And I'm not saying that I agree or that I think that should happen, but I'm just furthering my point that you can never remove a person's choice. Never. That person will choose what they want. If that's what they want, they will have it, period.
One thing that we haven't mentioned is just the gender dynamic here. And I still don't have a good way to formulate this argument or this angle of argumentation, right? Mm-hmm. But this really is just putting a lot of the onus on women, right?
It is, that's the nature.
Men obviously have a role in pregnancy, mm-hmm. right? And there's got to be a creative way. If you want to stop unwanted pregnancies from potentially getting aborted one day, like there's got to be creative ways to put onus on men. Is there a way to get men accountable? I don't know. Because the whole conversation, we know once a woman is pregnant, if she has that baby, there's a lot of ways that are going to be she's going to be responsible for and burdened with, right. that a man either can never share in or has the option to share in or not. And we have child support and things like that. And there's going to be a lot of guys getting real butthurt right now about it to say, what? Oh, there's so much pressure on guys. And the government always trying to tell us how to be fathers and stuff. And I'm not trying to hear your defensiveness right now. But I don't know. The
nature of pregnancy, child rearing, like raising children and parenting in general, a lot of the heavy load does seemingly fall on women, even when it comes down to who gets to decide if we're having an abortion or not. The final decision typically falls on women. A man doesn't have to be present for a woman to go into that clinic and say she wants an abortion. But secondly, when you talk about unwanted pregnancies being aborted, and I know we've said this 1,000 times, but it's not even about unwanted pregnancies. Some people abort pregnancies that they really, really want because they feel like they have to. Mm-hmm. So, that's the point. There's so many complexities here. Every level has a deeper level. Every layer has a deeper layer. For us to just sit up and make that decision it requires a lot more conversation, and we need to bring many more people to the table of what that decision looks like. And quite frankly, maybe the true conclusion is bringing less people to the table and leaving it up to the woman who was pregnant. I don't know. We'll see. But it's a tough call. It's a tough call.
All right. That's probably enough.
Yep.
All right, so
heavy episode this week.
Yeah, so a quick bit of news, housekeeping, right? We're going on summer break for a little while. We need to regroup. We need to set some things in motion going forward. We also need to just pause some things for a little while. Jay Callie's always super busy.
Don't say that.
You are. What? You got a lot on your plate.
Everybody knows that. I'm busy, y'all. I'm an important
Yeah, what? I
woman.
didn't think that was a bad thing to say. Yeah,
Because we're all busy. The world is busy.
Look, some of us aren't as busy.
We're going to go. Yeah. We're going to regroup. I'm going to go and handle my business, y'all. Y'all already know that I'm teaching. I'm in graduate school. I do this podcast. I have I've got a ton of things going on. I'm changing careers. I'm in the middle of a career shift. I got to get these internships, and I'm about to be broke, y'all, because my internship is unpaid. So I got to go and get my finances in order. I got a lot of things to handle. But when we come back, we're going to hit the ground running. We're going to have a lot of great topics. We're going to get caught up on our personal lives. We're going to get you caught up on the news. We're going to rework some guest speakers. I'm claiming that one. We're going to have some people come and holler at us, talk about some fresh stuff. So when you see that What's the Deal icon pop back up in your wherever you listen to your podcast, if it's iTunes, if it's Google, if you still listen on Podbean, if you just listen, I don't know, y'all might be bootlegging the show at this point.
WOLDCnews.com.
Might be listening on the internet. I don't know where you listen. But when you see it pop up and say new episode, I hope you're ready to click the link, because that means we back in action. Okay.
Why am I even here? That was amazing.
I know.
It's going to give you all the show duties.
I do it for fun.
Okay, so with that said, I'm Steve Discourse.
It's your girl, Jay Callie.
That's the deal.